Hey, good evening,
Good evening,
everybody. Thanks
everyone.
for joining us on the Lady and the Maverick.
Yeah,
Welcome.
yeah, I think a bit early tonight, maybe a minute early. Oh well,
Minute early. Oh boy.
better to be
Oh
earlier than
boy.
late, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, today we have Michael Kopf with us. Michael's actually an old friend of mine. We first met when we both traveled through Egypt together in 2014 with William Henry and his wife Claire. So that's how I met Michael, and we're thrilled to have him join us today. Um, he's very accomplished. Um, and I'll read you a little bit. I'm going to read it because honestly, he's so accomplished, I would probably forget half of what his bio is about. But Michael's a lifelong paranormal experiencer whose first encounter occurred at age 2. He grew up seeing shadow figures, later discovering abilities in channeling, astral travel, and mediumistic awareness. He's a Reiki Master, an ordained minister. Michael has explored multiple esoteric modalities from Huna and Tarot to timeline work and mystic studies. His global experiences include notable past life activations in Rome, Malaysia, southern France, Egypt, and beyond. Since 2019, he's worked with multiple investigative teams, participating in more than 100 investigations across hospitals, asylums, historic homes, military sites. And today, Michael is known for his media presence as the host of The Energy That Surrounds Us, Paranormal Verses, and Writing Through the Unknown, sharing his evolving journey through disclosure, personal awakening, and the unexplained. And he's also an author, and he's writing a 4-book series about himself. So let's welcome Michael to the show.
I shouldn't have written all that down. You've done it for me.
Hey,
Hello,
Michael.
Michael.
Hello,
That's
thank you
quite
for
the
having me.
bio.
You're welcome.
Well,
Hello,
I
Paul.
just have one question though about the bio. You mentioned Malaysia, and I actually have never stepped foot in Malaysia.
Oh, then pronounce it for me.
I'm not sure where
Malaga.
Malaga. That's in
Malaga.
Spain.
Okay,
Malaga.
insane. Well, my apologies for that mispronunciation.
That's okay.
We
It had
call it
me
Malaga
panic
in
for a moment, thinking, "Wait, did I write something and
No,
autocorrect
not
changed
your
it?"
error, mine.
we call it
So,
Malaga in
hey,
England.
girl.
Malaga, not
Malaga,
so
Spain.
Malaga and yeah. So the English would think Malaga.
Don't
Where's
connect the
that?
two.
I was just thinking that's cool. We call it Malaga. But there you go. Doesn't matter, does it? Malaga sounds quite nice. Isn't it?
Well, at
Malaga
least it's
sounds
not
cool
Malaysia.
too. Yeah.
Hi. Everybody's starting to chime in and join us. Michael, I'm
Hello.
curious
Good evening.
what your first experience you said was at age 2. I'm amazed that you could even remember that. What was it?
Well, so I didn't remember it at age 2. So how the story of the revelation of it came about was I have a nick on my eyebrow that I could never knew what was going on, but the hair would never grow on it. And so I would ask my parents what happened, and they said, "Oh, when you were 2, you fell down a shaft and a wire cut your eyebrow, but you were okay." And I was like, okay. So I thought nothing of it. And then when I started my journey into, healing myself, and when I thought I was broken, so I started all these different modalities, I started getting memories of that incident and remembered, okay, I had a conversation with the being, set out my, what I needed to do in life to help myself, to be able to help others and start my journey. And and then later on, when I was on a podcast show, a friend in Greece filled in some of the story, and my mom started to fill in some of the story. So I now have a full memory of it, where the full memory is we were working on something on the second floor of our home, which was 2 stories and a basement. And my mom had put plywood over the vent opening. Well, something moved the plywood. So I'm looking over this opening and I'm like, what's going on? Well, all of a sudden, I feel something on my arms and I'm going in. And my friend in Greece said a being accidentally pulled me in. And so I was like, okay. Then another being who's tall, like a bluish white light, really tall being, grabs me. And that's the one I remember talking to. The other one disappears. And my eye gets nicked on a wire in this vent shaft, and I land on the concrete. Now it's winter time, and this home is in Illinois, so you can imagine winter, early 80s. We all looked like little stars because we were bundled.
Oh, yeah. You could barely move.
So my mom kind of thought, well, because of my padding from my winter clothes being on, that's what made me okay, because I got up and just walked away. I had no broken bones, no injuries. Well, I remembered having that conversation, and I'm talking on a show, or it was during an interview, and I'm like, yeah, it was really interesting, at 2 years old, having a conversation with a being saying, I want these gifts to come in this format to help me with this and these abilities. And I'm like, what 2-year-old, has that awareness?
Seriously. Wow.
And the other person on the other end of the screen laughs and she goes, actually, you know what the really cool part and interesting part is? And I said, what? She goes, you could understand that being. I had I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm. Was it telepathic, Michael? It must have been.
I feel like it was.
Yeah. That's usually how they will communicate. Interesting. Wow. And now you go on then to have a teen paranormal and UFO experience. I'm curious about the UFO experience. Huh.
So the UFO experience I had 2 of them. One was I was at my job at the time, and this was probably a couple of months before the lockdown started, so 2023 or 2020. It all blends together. I don't remember the years. But I was on a job. It was like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, closing up what I was doing. And I look up and I see this object just hovering. And it looks like a plane, but not a plane. It's almost like the game Tetris, where it has that long block and then it goes up. And so I'm like, well, I've never seen a plane look like a block with a block sticking up. And so I was like, that's interesting. So I'm like, okay, well, I put my stuff together. I go inside to check out, let them know I'm leaving, and thank them for letting me be there. And I come out, and it's still in the same exact spot. Now, 3 or 4 minutes have passed. No object I know of in our flight abilities can just hover, except for helicopters, but this didn't have any features of a helicopter. And I couldn't hear it over the traffic of the highways. And that was the other thing I started to notice. I couldn't hear it because planes, we can always hear over the traffic. And so I walked to my car and I put everything in my trunk. And I look up and the object is still there. So I took a photo because I was like, this is really strange. And I don't know what happened with the photo
Oh no.
because it might be on a drive that I lost or was damaged.
Did you see
But
the craft, Michael, on the photograph?
I did, and that's where when I zoomed in, it looked like that Tetris piece.
Wow.
And what amazed me too was this whole time it was in the same exact spot. And when I asked some people about it, they're like, well, did you check with FAA? You know, because planes can hover while they're encircling for their landing and everything. And I was like, well, but it wasn't circling. It wasn't moving. That I'm like, military, we have jets that can do that a little bit, but this was much bigger than any military plane I had ever seen. And so I was like, I just thanked it, got and started to drive off, and it was still there until I got past where that area was. And so I was like, I wonder why it didn't follow me and just stayed where it was. What was going on there? And I never was able to follow up with what was over there to get it. And another experience I had earlier was quite a unique one. Something told me to go walk outside. Kathy, you're familiar with these kind of
Oh, yes,
conversations.
I am.
It's nighttime, and I walk out. I look up into the night sky to my right, and there's one cloud in the sky. And I'm like, well, that's somewhat weird, but not unusual for Texas. Then all of a sudden, I see little bursts of light, different colors, and I'm like, what am I looking at here? What? And at first I was like, well, is this ball lightning? But that would mean there would be more clouds because it's not isolated to one thing. And then I was like, I looked at it and I was like, that's not ball lightning. That's an impact. And my mind started like focusing in on it and thinking about it. And being sci-fi natured, I'm thinking all the space movies I've seen where ships have shields and how the impact of a laser looks on a shield. And I was like, it's actually like 99% exactly like what they show on TV. So I was like, this has got to be an impact. There's probably two ships up there duking it out. And I was like, this is really cool. Well, of course, as I'm doing this, I don't have the mindset to get my phone out to film it. I
Usually
instead
happens.
go in and get my mom. And I go, Mom, you want to see something really cool? And she goes, yeah. So we come out and we're watching this. And a couple of days after this event is over, I realize this was over my house. And I was like, thank you for not having any debris fall and hit my house because I don't think insurance would believe me. Something from not of this world is in my living room with like battle damage. Can you fix this for me?
Wow. So,
Wow.
have you have you ever had an actual encounter with an extraterrestrial being?
In the
No,
physical here,
yeah,
I would say no.
as an
But on
adult.
the astral realm, many
Uh-uh.
times.
Interesting. How does that
Can I?
work then? What, Alex?
I know I was going to, because I've got stuff written down. I was just wondering, when with the shadow beings, did you see them later on in life, or just when you were 2 years old? Because I'm interested in those. The shadow.
Actually, I saw the shadow beings as a preteen, and
Oh, right.
probably middle. Let's see. I'm trying to think how they do school differently everywhere. So I would say it was 9th, 10th grade in that time frame that I saw the shadow beings. And
Okay.
what it was I would sit in a room where there was a door to the hallway, or a doorway to the hallway, really. There was no door on it. And a glass door to my right that was a sliding door, and then the kitchen was behind me. Well, I'm watching TV, and out of the corner of my eye, I would always see these like black looking figures form, peeking around the corner and being like, oh, is he seeing us? What's he doing? And then they would start to creep closer to me, and they would get to where they almost could touch me, and I would turn and look and go, not this time. And they would disappear, of course, when I seen them face on. And so I kind of made it this game between them and me of, can they get to me before I see them out of the corner of my eye and going, aha, or will they be able to tag me, kind of do like the Native American counting coup? Would they be able to touch me and go back to where they were and be like, we got him?
Because I had one come near me. They're only about 3 feet tall, aren't they? Not very tall, 3-4 feet maybe. And it came out from behind a tree, a cluster of trees. It was in Rendlesham, funny enough. And it stood next to me, looked at me. There's 2 of us there, and just went whoosh, ever so quick. Whoosh, it's gone. And I didn't see any more for about a year. And then I saw them maybe 6 or 7 running through the forest. But it was weird because it didn't know I was there, obviously. And it came out like you say, and they're looking, and bang, there we are. I was just looking down at this very strange, well, I call them shadow people, but he was gone very, very, very quick. Didn't get a chance to photograph it. Shame.
And I did have another chance where I almost had a shadow being. And the reason I say almost is I was on a location with a team that I was collaborating with. And the team leader and I were looking in the doorway, and we're like, there is something forming. There's a black mass actually forming. It's like we were seeing like a cloud, and it's like starting to sparkle and take shape. And the people we were with got overly excited and shined their flashlight on it, and so naturally it went poof and disappeared. And I was like, no, don't shine the light on it. I was like, yeah. I've always wondered, what were we about to see, because the light dissipated it and we never got to.
I know the feeling. I wish I hadn't run off. I don't know what I was. There were 2 of us. I don't know what I'd have said to it. But anyway, I just wondered. Obviously, the same thing. But yeah, very quick as well.
Yeah, and there are 2 different versions of shadow beings. There are shadow beings that are there to be playful, and I kind of view them as like teachers. They're helping you be aware and trust what you're seeing, trust what's going on. And then there's shadow beings that are actually lurking and wanting to attach. And those are different. And those, I consider, they come from the shadow realm of the astral plane. And they feed off of fear and other emotions. And so if you go into a space and you're not protected, they'll latch onto you, and they can drain you and just kind of.
It's strange because Bill's. I was just going to ask you this question, and Bill's asked it. Does Michael have any idea where they come from? I was going to ask you exactly the same question. Where do they come from?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them I feel like come from different stars. Like I feel like there is a star race as we talk about, like Arcturians, Palladians, Lyrans. I think there are some that look like shadows. And so those are the ones that I view as benevolent, that I think I came in contact with my experiences, because it's like they wanted to teach and help me prepare for what's coming, so to speak.
Yeah.
The other shadow beings come from a different place, and they're looking to survive, and they will latch onto any source.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's somewhat where the vampire lore came from, because if you remember, when vampires first came into everyday language, nobody had a picture of it. Nobody knew exactly what it looked like. It came from the shadows. They were fine, and then they weren't. And so I view it as, yeah, that was a shadow being, got a hold of someone and became an attachment and drained them and moved on. And this person was left not knowing, what's going on, and so didn't know how to protect themselves. And so there's a lot of things when we look at in our folklore, in our, I use the term mythos or mythologies, that we take literal, that if we look at symbolic, it fits more things than what we understand. When, for example, when we say, oh, angels are from God and they came down and they're watching over us. Okay, well, what does that? Well, ETs do that. Could the angels be ETs? Yes. Why couldn't they be? Well, if they're an ET race here to help us, what better form than an angel from our myths? Because they all say, well, they have wings. No, they don't have wings. They glow. No, they don't glow. So it's like the perfect guys. You can come in, look around, help, and you won't be discovered because everybody will go, oh, that was an angel. And then everybody will
Or
be
the
like, yeah,
watchers,
right.
yeah.
Oh,
So that's my theory of where a lot of these are coming from and how they're able to operate here without exposing who they are and why they're here.
Interesting.
Well, that's,
Yeah, I know I had an encounter with the shadow people out in Tennessee. I think we talked about this, Michael. We might have been on the same show about this now that I think of it, talking about shadow beings. And they were very benevolent. They were there. It was a whole tribe of Native Americans as shadow beings in the house, going across the wall. It was quite fantastic. And but they were there as protectors of the land. It was a Native American land, and up in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, and they were very benevolent. The owners of the farm felt safe with them. They weren't feeling a little disturbed when they first started to see them. But it's interesting. So, do you think that type of shadow being, who they were benevolent, they were kind of protectors, watchers, protectors, that they could actually have been earth-based, have had past lives attached to the land and now are in shadow?
They can. And one thing, though, that I find really interesting when we talk about ghosts and spirits is a lot of people will use the term stuck. Like, oh, this being is stuck here.
Yeah.
And I had that one, I kind of get very wary of, because a ghost or a spirit is energy. And science told us energy can be neither created nor destroyed. It just is. So if that is true, how is this spirit or entity or being or ghost stuck? Because there's nothing around that we know of that can make energy stay put. I mean, let's think about it. We have a laser, which is energy. It penetrates through any object. Well, light penetrates through any object and is energy. Same with sound. So why would we think this person who's pure energy would be stuck and unable to go anywhere? And so that always has puzzled me. And to get back to what you were asking, Kathy, is there is, the land does have energy to it. And so it could have been them placing a blessing to you of saying, you're in touch with the land, you're feeling the land, and so you're picking up
Yeah.
that there used to be people here and they were walking across just like they would have when they were alive.
Interesting, Michael. Would you consider that then a place memory type of experience?
It could be a residual, like them just going through, but there are times too that I now, with where I am today, would question, is it residual, or could it be that that house may be where ley lines are really close or connecting, and so the veil is thinner due to the energy of the ley lines, and so you're seeing a parallel timeline where those people are walking along and you're seeing it, but they're not aware of you, so there's no interaction. And so a lot of times now I'm starting to think all those residuals, could it have been seeing another timeline, another parallel dimension?
Yeah.
Because we really don't know. And so when we start to look at what options are available today with different theories that people are putting out, and then saying, well, how does this correlate to this? It makes just as much sense as saying the Native Americans were walking along just like they did, and it was their happy place, and so that's where they returned to.
In fact, Michael, interestingly enough, I was there at Butterfly Hill Farm with Loretta Brown, who was in Egypt with us. So she was standing right next to me, and I'm seeing the shadow people moving. And I looked at her and I said, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And she says, oh, yes, I see them. So that was an interesting confirmation, because do you remember Loretta?
I do.
Yeah, she, so it was for me, and having that experience, she really validated it because she was seeing the same thing.
And that's always, really fun and really helpful when that happens. And I think the reason why it happens for some people and not others, now that I'm thinking about it with where I'm at today and awareness, is I used to say, well, Kathy is open to the experience, so that's why she saw it. These weren't, so they're not going to make themselves aware to someone who's not a believer and waste their energy. So that's why they don't see. And now today I look at it and go, well, Loretta and Kathy are both energy workers. They're familiar with energy. They see energy. So they don't have to do anything to make themselves visible. They just are. And so they'll interact more with that than the person who is sitting there going, okay, can you touch this antenna, or can you move this ball so that it lights up so we know you're here? Because they're like, why should I? What how does this help us communicate, where people like Kathy and Loretta who see the energy
and you
just
and Alex
see it and go,
I've said the same. same about mediumship. When I used to stand up, I didn't do any preliminary. They just used to come in.
You're an open channel.
Same as what you're saying. They just used to come in, and I'd give the messages. And people said, you know, how'd you do it? So I don't know. But it did. And it was so easy.
So you have the same frustration I have, Alex, of things that I naturally do. When people go, "Can you teach us how to do that?" And you're like, "Not really. I'm sorry, no, because I don't even know how I do it."
Seriously, how do you put that into words?
And mine started when I was 4. Yours was 2. I was 4 years old when mine kicked in.
I was 6.
70 years now they've been around me. And I used to do these gigs, shows. I don't know, I call them gigs. Just do these shows, and they just come in, messages, exactly what you're saying. And I couldn't honestly explain to anyone. It weren't because people thought it was awkward. I wasn't. It's just I didn't need to do it. And you're the first person I've heard say that. Made my day.
Makes sense.
Made my day.
Makes sense. Alex, why don't you pull up Mike's comment? I think I don't know if you can see the comments, Michael.
Actually, I probably can.
Mike Millward.
You talking about this one?
Yes.
This one?
Yes.
I don't think they're stuck. They believed life can prevent moving on.
They believed in life, can prevent moving on. What are your thoughts on that?
So there is, in my opinion, that theory of, you know, what they didn't accomplish, you know, they can't move on until they accomplish it. It really, the basis of that is, like, if you remember the Crow movies that they did, Brandon Lee was in the very first one.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so something traumatic happened, and they felt they couldn't move on until they made it right. And so they were here under the guise of the Crow, who brought them back to finish what they needed to accomplish. And I feel like that is possible. But if you remember in the movies, you know, the Crow series, he's able to travel around. So he's not actually stuck in the place where the trauma happened. And so I don't feel like they're stuck in that location, but I feel like instead what's really going on is everybody's gathering there to talk to them and to get answers. And so they may be, you know, in the field behind the house and going, I'm over here, but everybody's over there, so I guess I'll go over there and I'll talk to them over there. And then they show up and communicate, and everyone's like, yes, he's here, they're here, we made contact. Well, that's kind of questionable because we don't have the means to actually validate who we're talking to unless you have a medium that sees them and can tell the difference between mimics. Then, you know, I would give more credence to, yes, you are talking to who you think you're talking to, but I don't really feel like anything can ever make us stuck. But our beliefs, though, do have an impact. And by that, I mean, so hypothetically, not predicting anything, but something happens to Alex or Kathy, and they're on the precipice. They can transition on or stay here. Well, while they're deciding, you could say they're stuck because they're not moving either way, but they're not stuck. What they're doing is trying to figure out, how do I operate in this world? Am I able to operate in the world I just left in? What will that be like? And so if you're going, say in Alex's case, well, I got hit by something, but the body's not badly damaged. I could, in essence, come back and be okay. It'll take a little bit. I'll do that. And so Alex comes back. Kathy, on the other hand, may be like, well, I got something penetrating through my body. That's going to really suck, but I don't know how I'm going to
I think I'm
move
leaving.
with the
Yeah, carry on.
information, on the, having all this information flooding me. I'm really overwhelmed and I don't know how to process all of this. Like the ability to move anywhere just by thought and having no pain and be able to go across the ocean without a vehicle. All of this, it's like overwhelming. So she may take a while to figure out how to operate in the new energies of where she is. So we're interpreting it as Kathy stuck because she's still where she is, but she's not stuck. She's just learning. And so that is something that I feel like maybe going on, but again, it's all theory because we can't prove
Exactly.
what is actually going on in people's minds. Because Kathy may be like, going, thank God this finally happened. Now I can go and do all the stuff I really wanted to do, and just takes off.
Uh-oh.
And we're like, I guess Kathy was ready.
Sayonara. Wow. Interesting.
There's a question for you from Bill. Does Michael think crows and ravens have mystic connections? That's interesting.
I do. I totally have the belief that, like a lot of indigenous tribes have, and a lot of ancient cultures, when you look at their stories and their legends, the crows and the ravens are always the messengers. They're delivering messages, and the messages always come from birds. It's kind of interesting. Like the dove is the Catholic bird for messages.
Okay.
In indigenous tribes, it's the crow, raven, and in other cultures, it's different. It's always birds. And I think the reason is because we're viewing everything that we're getting messages from outside of ourselves on a higher plane, heaven, or whatever you want to call it. And where do we put that? Off planet, higher than the clouds. Well, what do we have to connect with that being or that place? We need a bird. Birds are the only things that can fly and maneuver freely in that in the space between. So it makes sense. And when we think about it as well, ancient Greeks, they didn't use a bird, but they did use birds because if you remember, Hermes is the messenger god.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what does Hermes have? A pair of shoes that have wings that allows him to fly from Olympus to Earth and back. So the messages are carried on wings. That's why I think our military puts a lot of benefit into planes, is the wings, and they view it as the protectorate. He who controls the skies controls the safety of the land, because you're in a space we can't touch. You're untouchable, so to speak. So birds are, what this comes from, and they're the ones that are in between. And in metaphysics, if you find a bird's feather on the ground, they're giving you a gift, a
Yes.
message.
Yeah.
So every aspect of the bird is a message. So I definitely feel like the ancients knew it, the indigenous tribes knew it. There are a few people now who remember and, believe in everything. And so, yeah, there's definitely a mystical connection.
Yeah. Michael, are you aware of the book called Animals Speak by Ted Williams, who's a
I
Native
am.
American? Yes, it's like my Bible. In fact, ravens and crows are totems for me. They are spirit, spirit birds, animals that do communicate to me. And interestingly enough, I had a great teacher come on my path, and he was able to come, and he was in Australia at the time. He was able to come to me as a raven. And I know that sounds extremely fantastical, but he, would tell me that, and I would see the specific raven right outside my window here, up in a tree, always in the same spot. And it would sit up there, it would look down at me, and it would talk to me. And I knew it was him. And I said, "Thank you for coming to visit me." And I would have, he would come in dream form as well. And he would take he would be either a raven or he would be a hawk. And I believe, it was him. He would come, and what do they call that, Michael? I'm blanking on the phrase where you could assume the bird to be able to come and visit you. There's a term for that, and I'm blanking on it. I apologize.
Well, one of the terms is shape shifting.
Thank you. That was what I was trying to think of. I knew you would know that.
But there is another thing, Kathy, that kind of along the lines. So I totally believe this happened for you, and it's really cool. Is a lot of the old generation, and when I say old generation, I mean like our grandparents, great grandparents, and everybody. They would tell stories of when a cardinal would appear outside their window. That's one of your ancestors coming to say hello. We're okay. So even the cardinal was viewed as a message, and when they would leave, and you would see a cardinal, it's like your whole body and everything would all suddenly come to peace and go, okay, they're okay. It's not that we can understand, what the cardinal is saying to us and that they're going, hey, I'm okay. It's Jack. Just letting you know everything's good. Don't worry. You're free to move on. It's the symbology, I think, that it's a message from them, and the feeling that comes through is what helps. And, maybe there are people that can understand what the birds are actually saying. And so, but yeah, I mean, what's interesting is everybody will always say, okay, well, if it's a crow or raven, you got to be careful. It's letting you know something's coming. There's a message you need to hear.
They can
But
be warnings, yeah.
other birds are not omens, which I always found that interesting. Why certain, and then when I thought about it and really was like looking within, I was like, well, crows and ravens are really the only two birds that are like deep dark black. Every aspect of them. There's no real color to them. And so maybe that's why they're viewed as shadow birds, and
Mystical.
everybody is like, oh, these are omens. To where if you see a red
Harbingers, yes.
cardinal coming
Yeah.
in, you're not sitting there going, oh man, something bad's coming.
Yep.
Mm.
I've actually had them warn me of something bad. That's happened more than once, where an entire group of them will come right in front of me, wherever I am, walking or whatever, and they will, as a group, caw at me. And you intuitively know, okay, caution, be careful. And I literally turned my car around. That kept happening as I was driving, going to this ashram that I attend quite a ways away from my house. And I almost had a head-on collision. I had another almost near hit with a car, and then the crows come, and I thought, oh my God, I turned my car around and I went straight home. And I knew without a doubt, had I continued on, and I had a lot further to go, I think I would have had a fatal car accident. And that was just the warning I was getting from them. So they do, I believe, Michael. Yeah. And you just read Ted Andrews' book, all of the animals, the birds, the, insects, all of them, will come on our path and have messages for us. And yeah, it's very cool, I think, how they do interact with us.
It is cool. And
I know Mike had an interesting comment, Alex, if you could.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. It said birds' feathers act as antennae for energy fields and magnetic fields, which is why they were closely watched by ancient civilizations.
That makes sense.
it's true. And we always thought north was a set point that was immovable. It was a natural force that's always in the same place, so we could guide ourselves by it. But birds who fly north in the winter are sometimes flying off what we would call, and I don't know where this came from, it's confusing as all get out, but there's northwest, which I guess is not quite northwest. Or they're like, it's northwest west, and I'm like, what in the world does this mean? And when I looked at it broken down, it's like, okay, here's north, here's northwest west, here's northwest, and I'm like, oh, so it's that in between the two cardinals that we'll go by. And that's the other interesting thing when we talk about our directions are cardinal directions.
Interesting.
And cardinals are birds. And so that's where I think it comes from. I know some people are going to go, well, there's cardinals in the church, but they're not messengers. All right. Sorry, folks. I know in religion you guys like to think of them as the voices of, but they're not. I'm sorry. It's a position that they got elected to. It's just a post in hierarchy for them.
Why do you think they were called cardinals then, Michael? I'd be curious to hear what you thought.
With the church?
Yes. And the red robes.
Because they were looking at the pagans and the natural beliefs of the land, and everybody was looking at, if a cardinal went by, they'd be like, oh, there's a loved one, oh, look, the eagles, this is the. And so they were associating the birds with something positive. And so I feel like they were going, okay, how do we get these mass people to want to support us and back us in our agendas? Well, red is a color of power, but in the bird sense, it's your ancestors, your loved ones coming. And so I feel like they tried to blend and make the hierarchy more accessible to people by saying, look, we're your elders. We're here to help you just like your grandparents were, but we're going to do it in this religion that we want you to swallow, believe, and not question. Because let's be honest, in medieval times and pre-medieval times to even today, what's the one thing in common amongst every human culture? Do not question your elders. Do not, argue with your elders. They have the wisdom. You're supposed to learn from them. Why do you think that was so ingrained into us? And then you go to the church hierarchy, there's cardinals. So you're not going to question them because they're supposed to be like the grandparents, the elders. And so that's my personal take on why the church uses that lingo. I'm sure somebody can look up something and find, goes, oh, cardinals are created from this point. But even when you look at the hierarchy, you have the monk, the priest, or I forget some of the other words that they use for as along with priest. But then it's cardinal, archbishop, bishop, or bishop, then archbishop,
And
then pope.
father. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's the one organization that has all these titles. And oh no, the cardinals are right before the pope.
Yeah.
Is the hierarchy because the conclave is all the
Oh, yeah.
cardinals gathering to determine who the next pope is going to be, and the voice of God. And to me, yeah, there we could do a whole episode on the church and all the
Oh, yeah.
differences of what's happening and what's perceived to be happening.
Can I switch you? Okay. Why don't you read this then, Alex, seeing as you pulled it up.
Evening, Michelangelo, new guy, I think. Welcome to the chat show. Greetings, everyone. I wanted to share that I found an old crow feather yesterday. I still saw this as a gift, and I also see them in a more dark blue tinge when they're flying sometimes. I'll have to look out for these.
That is true. The sun hits the black of their feathers, and if they've recently gotten wet area or something, it creates like an iridescent sheen to it. And so it's true. It can turn blue.
Blue.
And I feel like it's the light hitting it in a certain way that black can look like blue. And that's why when we buy clothes, you can think you're wearing a black shirt and you're really wearing a navy blue shirt because
there you go. Sometimes it's so close. Yeah. Can I bring you, Michael, back to 2012? I'm sorry, 2013. And you referenced that you were in France, the Cathar part of southern France. Could you talk about that? Because I also did a pilgrimage to southern France, actually, ironically, with William Henry again and Claire. And it was an entire journey of Cathar, country, climbed Mount Monsegur. I feel, I'll just put this out there and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know I've had a past life as a Cathar. I believe you did too. This is just me reading you. And what's interesting about that period, there was an annihilation of the Cathars by the Catholic Church. Pope Innocent III sent out the decree to annihilate the Cathars. And I'm curious, what your thoughts are about that whole time frame, and do you believe you had a past life there as a Cathar? Because I know there's, I did a lot of research around before I went on this trip, and there was Esclamat de Foi, who was one of the paraffits. She was a leader in the Cathar movement. Just your thoughts on the whole Cathar thing. But when I read that in your bio, it jumped out at me, having been there and having had such an incredible connection there.
Yeah, I had so many experiences there, and some stick out in my mind more than others, but being in the Cathar region it was very interesting because it really opens your mind and it opens the energies, but at the same time it challenges you in other ways. And so let me preface this and explain it by sharing a couple of experiences that were actually intertwined. So we were at the base of Rennes Chateau as our headquarters, and we were, my roommate and I, we would go out exploring at night. Well, we found some ruins and we were going to go into the town. And as we're climbing the town, we're going up, straight up, but you're really supposed to, it's a winding road with bushes and stuff on certain sides. And so we're climbing up and we're following the paths and taking shortcuts through. And the closer we got to the gate, I started hearing rustling in the bushes. And my mind and energy goes into what I call the spidey sense, where I'm like, something's here, but I can't see it. And it seems to be following us. Something's tracking us. And we're getting closer to the gate, and we'd move faster, the sound moved faster. So I'm like, my senses are all like, okay. My stomach starts to feel uneasy. I'm like, okay, this is it. We are not supposed to be here. And then my roommate is like literally standing probably 10 steps from the entry stone of Rennes Chateau. Is like, we made it. And I'm like, we got to turn around. He's like, we're here. Well, let's just go in. I was like, no, you don't understand. We need to go. And I got a bad feeling. Something's here. We need to go. So he's like, all right. He kind of trusts me. And we walk down, and I hear the rustling half of the way, and then it stops. And I was like, okay. Well, people that go to sacred sites have an awareness that there are guardians there. And so that's what I think was the guardians were like, we know you're here. We know why you're here, but tonight's not the night. And I preface that by this next clarifying for the next part of this experience. So the next night or two, or it was either the next night or 2 nights later, we're going up the path again, and we're like, we're going to make it this time. Well, if you've seen the movie 13th Warrior, this one part will make a lot of sense. It's a Viking movie, and I look back and there's like this long line of fire coming our way. It's like a fire snake. In the 13th Warrior, they called it a fireworm. And it's coming straight down. Well, it's traveling through forests without starting a fire. And I'm like, this is really weird. And so I look at my roommate and I'm like, you see that coming? He's like, yeah. I'm like, if we're going into town, we need to hurry up and get in town. Because I don't want to meet what's, holding those fire staffs and able to walk through trees and not start a fire. I'm like, I don't want to meet these people. So we hurry up and we get close to the gate, and the back of my mind is like, okay, are we okay? The fireworm is still a long distance off, but there's no rustling. So we go to the stone, take a picture of ourselves at the stone saying, we're here. It's dark, we're here on our own. And I looked in my room and I'm like, if we go through town, we got to be quiet because people live here. Let's not be those typical tourists go screaming, hey, look, and do all that. He's like, yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. So we're walking through respectfully, and it's close to midnight. And we look and we get to the edge of this area where the Tour Magdala is to our right, but there's this outcropping area to our left, and the mountains are all lit up. And my first thought is, wow, look at all the electricity at night that these cities are putting out in France. This is really interesting. And so I think nothing of it. Walk over, we take some photos at the edge of the tour Magdala, and then life takes an interesting twist for me. My roommate hears something I don't hear, so he goes out to investigate it. I look down over the edge, and I see the town below with this soft yellow light. And I'm like, it barely lights up anything. So my mind goes, wait, why is it really bright over behind those mountains? That's interesting. And I turn and I look forward, and this lady in white goes like this, floats across, looks at me, and disappears into the tour. And I'm like, I just saw a lady in white. Okay. And before I can process anything, my roommate taps me on the shoulder and he's like, it was nothing. I was like, okay. Mind snaps out of it and I forget about the lady in white in front of me. Well, we start walking and we're kind of talking to each other, and there's these bushes at the end of the trail quite a bit ahead of us, and these two red lights start looking at us, and I'm like, they're spaced perfectly for eyes, and I'm like, something is in that bush. And my roommate goes, yeah, you're right. So we walk a little bit, the eyes are still there. I'm like, there's a path over here. Let's take this path. Let's go back into the safety of the town, and, everything will be okay. We go, and we find ourselves right literally at the entrance of Renlas Chateau. And I'm like, how is this possible? But okay. So we go back to our room. Fireworm is gone. Nothing follows us. The next day, we go into Puvert. This is where I say these experiences are intertwined. On this sign outside of Castle Puvert is the legend of Puvert, the lady in white, the omen of death. And if you see this, you are marked for death. And I'm sitting here going,
Oh,
I just
no.
saw a lady in white the other night. I am marked for death. And I'm like, what do I do? And I'm like, well, who could I tell? Because I don't want somebody being in harm's way trying to prevent what's apparently supposed to happen from happening. So I tell no one. And years go by, obviously still here, and talking to the lady that led the tour in France, and I said, yeah, and she goes, I saw where you were talking about something, and I'm curious. And I said, oh, are you talking about seeing the lady in white? She's like, yeah. Why didn't you tell me? And I said, because I know you. You would have done something to try and protect or interfere, and something could have happened to you, and I couldn't live with myself if that had happened. And she starts laughing. She goes, Michael, you're such a sweetheart, but I could have also told you there's another legend of a lady in white that has nothing to do with being marked for death, so I could have put your mind at ease. And I was like, good point.
Oh my gosh. Did you get to the walled city of Carcassonne?
We did. I
Yeah.
actually had lunch there.
Yeah. Yeah. We
And
spent the day.
we made our tour guide and the lady in charge of the tour upset because we're sitting enjoying a meal because we thought we'll just get the traditional dish, easy. It'll be fast because they obviously are going to be making it in advance. And it wasn't. And so we hurried up and ate and got back together. And the first thing that happens when we got together is our tour guide goes, oh, there they are. Nice of you guys to join us. And the lady in charge is like, where have you been? We have been looking all over for you. And I was like, we stopped to have lunch. I was like, we're sorry. We were hungry and we thought traditional meal once in a lifetime Carcassonne experience, and yeah, it was funny how it ended up being like, yeah, we held everybody up.
Now, did you go on to Lord's?
We did, and we went to a few other places, and I remember so people will relate starting at Rennes Chateau as the root chakra, pilgrimage all the way up to Rosalind Chapel is the crown chakra, a San Grail or a holy path. But I feel like southern France itself has several of those built in. And it was similar with Egypt, where all the temples we stopped at were chakra related.
Yes, they are.
And so I feel like everywhere we went to was no accident. And what was interesting is our first experience, we were not totally in Cathar, France, but we were staying in this place before, and we went to the Mary Magdalene's grotto, the cave where she was said to
St.
have
Baum?
lived. I
St.
think it
Baum?
was in Baum.
Yeah, it is. It's St. Baum.
And there's water on the top of this cave entrance. And I remember photographing it and looking at it and going, it's really kind of interesting how this water is free flowing in, but it's in the shape of a person with wings. So I guess I could call it angel. But it fits the story of Mary Magdalene, being protected, and
Mhm.
that there would be nobody that could enter because nobody can get past an angel,
Yeah.
or so they say, I should
Yeah.
say.
No, and Egypt, going back to Egypt, that I'm sure you would agree, that is such a life-changing place. And I think it's a place, it's like the motherland. I think there are many of us I know I've had past lifetimes there, who are being called there to recall these past lifetimes. And I believe the same with the Cathars. There's a whole study going on that there are actively now people who are activated to remember that Cathar lifetime, and that they come together as a group. There was a documentary done on it. It was very fascinating, and I think it's true of a lot of these sacred sites. So, Egypt as well, that there's a coming together of those of us who have had our past lives. I know some folks here in our chat, Leslie in particular, my friend Leslie, we've shared past lifetimes in Egypt. And it's remarkable how there is a coming together, I believe, of souls who have shared those lifetimes.
Yeah. Kathy, let me, this story, but I think Alex will find this very interesting. And that's the King's Chamber and the Great Pyramid scenario that happened. So it's my birthday and my roommate's birthday,
We had
and
a big celebration.
we're going into the King's Chamber, and
Our
there's this
last day there.
sarcophagus bottom that's totally bigger than the opening that we had to crawl on our elbows to get into. And I was like, that is so this room was created for this sarcophagus. Okay. And we all got to lay in this sarcophagus and have an experience with tuning forks activating us. And so I had an experience of meeting the Egyptian gods in this mystical forest where they were talking, and it sounds, my memory is, I don't have all the pieces of the conversation yet, but it sounds like I started yelling at the gods, and I'm like, who just walks up on the gods and starts yelling at them? I'm like, this guy. So I come back in, and I don't remember anybody else's experiences that was shared. And we crawl out, and my memory is fluid of crawling out of the King's Chamber, walking down the steps, out the front door, back to where we were staying, our compound. Kathy, as I'm sharing this story, goes, Michael, you forgot the Queen's Chamber. I know you were in the Queen's Chamber, and this is what happened to me in there. And I'm like, I was in the Queen's Chamber? I still have not been able to access memory of the Queen's Chamber.
Kidding. That is so
And
bizarre.
it amazes me, Alex, is my memory is so fluid that I would never think a piece of it was removed. And so when Kathy said you were there, I remember she was like kind of getting frustrated with me because I was like, "Are you sure? I don't have any memory of it." She's like, "I saw you. You were in there."
Why do you think it was removed? What reason would you think?
So I have two theories of it. Is my mind was so processing meeting the gods that I kind of was like walking through it and just like not really being present. So my mind just was like, okay, we're in, we're out. Because I'm in process mode. The other thing I think is I was activated to in the King's Chamber, but I wasn't ready to be activated in the Queen's Chamber. And so until that time comes, I'm not going to remember it. But because Kathy, said she saw me in the Queen's Chamber, I have no doubt that once that energy is ready to be activated in me, it's going to come. I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, I need to go to Egypt and go into this room so, I can get this activation. It's already there. It's just.
Yeah. So, do you recall, Michael, what happened to me in the Queen's Chamber? That is where I put my face in the northern air shaft, and I had a Hathor being come to me, filled the entire. It was a remarkable experience. As I've written about it, I thought I talked about it on your show.
We
but
did.
That this being, came and gave me this incredible message telepathically that they have been with us. They love us. This being was full of love. I mean, there was no fear for me at all. But I don't remember you having this issue with me seeing you there. And now this makes sense because I think what happened is I was activated like beyond. And I don't think, had you and I been interacting with each other, I may not have gone to that air shaft. And I'm drawn to it. I'm telling you, I'm putting my face in this darn ancient air shaft, and I don't even question it. I'm like, who does that? But see, and I don't think you were quite ready to do that because if we had interacted, I may not have had that experience.
And so our interaction was you seeing me in there. We were talking about it's dark, but she's like, I feel certain you were in the room. You would have come in the room with us. It was really dark, but you would have, we all went through there, so you would have too. And so it's not that you and I like were talking and I don't have memory of a conversation. It's you were doing your thing. We all were doing our own things, but we were all in there. It's just, it's a blank for me right now.
Interesting.
But there are times though that I feel like it might be coming soon because I'll be sitting there and I'll be like, why am I thinking about this now? Why am I thinking about Egypt and being in the pyramid? I know this part. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's to tell me that the time is coming soon where
no happenstance that you're here in the show and we're talking about this. That's how it works. Can I share with you too, Michael? When I was on your show and we, kind of was sharing some of our experiences, that's when you opened up to me and shared what happened to you seeing the gods when you laid down in the sarcophagus. Because what happened to me was I laid down and my last conscious thought was, I I can't breathe. And then I go out of my body and see, it's funny how our recall works. I don't recall where I went, but I do know I astral traveled. I do know I went out of my body. And it wasn't until I had a book come on my path by Freddie Silva. I don't know if you're familiar with this, The Lost Art of Resurrection. So what that sarcophagus was, we were trained as initiates in ancient Egypt to learn how to lower our vibrations, our breathing, everything, to be able to then leave the body and to travel and to have these other exchanges and experiences. But you were also taught to come back in and that you didn't die. It was a resurrection. And whenever I read that, and it was all taught with the mystery schools. So the Great Pyramid, I'm sure you probably know, was part of the Great Mystery Schools, as was Heliopolis, as was, there's a lot of the temples are involved in that. And it is all lined up to a chakra system, to a Kundalini whole experience and activation. And you and I don't know if anybody else had that experience in that sarcophagus, and that, we had our out of body experiences. So I was thrilled to hear you had your experience, because, you kind of think to yourself, did this really happen? Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting is, you talk about the connection between astral and being in Egypt and going out of body. When I was first being taken out of body and doing my travels, the first thing I would do is I would appear on, Ra's ship, talk to Isis and Ra, and then I would go out into the universe and do whatever I was going to do. And then as I became more, I guess, comfortable and more aware of how I was able to travel, I was able to just go from point A to point B. I didn't need the ship anymore. And I was talking with Laura Eisenhower, and we were talking about how the moon has these pads where they're called jump pads, where you can jump to other places. And we were like, yeah, I remember those, and I remember using those for a little while and then learning. And so, yeah, and it is interesting how my first awareness to getting comfortable with the astral realm was Ra's ship, which is a tie to Egypt.
And so you would have full recall of these of your astral travels?
I would have the recall of knowing I had gone somewhere and seen different worlds or different beings, but I couldn't really tell what I was doing there. Was it for benevolence? Was I just popping in and popping out, or did I do, any service or anything? I don't get a lot of recall about, but how it works is, and this is going to sound kind of strange to people, is watching shows like Babylon 5 or Battlestar Galactica or Star Trek, Star Wars. I recognize beings. I recognize ships. And when I was watching, like, even the original Star Trek, whenever a ship would appear, I'd be like, that's a friend. Oh no, that's a bad ship. Don't do it. Don't do it. And it's like I had this awareness, never seen these episodes. It's like I knew, and I was like, how do I know all this? And then I was like, oh, it must be from my travels that these shows are more reality than people realize.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Excuse me, Alex. Could you pull up Mike's comment?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's from Mike. Can't remember the guy's name. He's an experiencer of many years standing, but he states the planet is starting to change frequencies, hence all of the solar and planetary activity. Also, the dimensions are opening up, allowing both good and bad through. Secrets will be uncovered soon.
That's true. And one
He
thing
doesn't remember his name.
I've heard a lot of people, so I'm not going to throw a name out because we may have different sources. And so I don't want to, say I know who that is and be talking about the wrong person. But
yes,
one thing that I have come to learn, and this is going to sound really strange, but it has taken me, I'm 47 and I'm just getting this, is the beings that are here that are helping us and coming through, they're not good or bad. They just are. And it's our perceptions and our filters that are judging what they're doing as being good or bad. And I know this is going to ruffle feathers because some people are like, well, they've done this to me and that's, this was wrong. But there's an awareness that I've come across recently that kind of sheds light on it, and nothing ever happens to us that we do not have a soul contract to have
Exactly.
happened. So if, let's say, a reptilian comes in, steals you from your room, takes and does something to you, brings you back. Yes, that's a horrible experience. And yes, that is, by our definitions, a bad thing. But under the soul contract, you agreed to it, so they're not actually breaking any law. And so that's why it's allowed. And what we need to do and understand is, because we were born with these contracts, we may or may not have memory of making. There is one thing that I have learned, and that is you can simply declare this contract of you coming and taking me and doing whatever you're going to do to help your people is no longer valid. I revoke this contract and I no longer give permission for this contract to be fulfilled. And they have to legally, under galactic law, accept that. There is no going to court and saying, oh, we have, rights because of this document being legal and binding. Their galactic law doesn't work like Earth law. And so if permission is revoked, there's nothing they can do about it because they need permission to do what they're doing. And so that's where, our judgments of good and bad, our perceptions, that's kind of, I feel like, limiting us from joining our galactic brothers because we're bringing a dualistic system to a system that just is. There's no time, there's no anything like what we have. And so we're really learning everything that we hold to be our truths are meaningless on the galactic stage. Like if I go, oh, well, I have, 47 years of experience. On the galactic stage, they're like, what is that, like a second to us?
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
meaningless. and in your terms, we're like 10 times older than you are. So you're going to tell us what to do? And so that's the thing with, when we say, we're awakening, our awareness is, coming around, and we're understanding new things, and we're getting all these challenges. All the challenges are we're having to let go of everything that is Earth realm to step into the galactic realm. And what that means is I can't go on the galactic realm and go, man, I can't do this because I'm feeling tired from doing all of this. The body isn't, up for it, because that's an earth term. The body is energy. Therefore, it's never tired. It's never energized. It just is. And so that's the key factor that we are needing to become aware of, is as we step into this new world of thought, we have so many truths that we hold in our core that society has placed on us. And one example I'll share with you is, a real simple one. We look out the window and we see grass. And we go, well, that's grass. It's green. Why is that grass? Why is it green? Well, because that's what we were told it is. And we just accept it. And somebody goes, well, no, the grass is green because scientifically the frequency of all the other colors are absorbed, and green is the one that's reflected back. Henceforth, we see it as green. And at the time, I was like, okay, I can't argue that. And then I was like, wait a minute. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You just got me to blindly accept that frequency is green that's reflecting back. How do I know that that's what that color represents, and that frequency is that color? That's another just fact that we blindly accept. And it could be a matrix code. And so all that's around us are these little frequency symbols just floating around. And I make the comment in a book that I'm writing about this of, I admit, I'd rather live on an earth realm where grass is green than a bunch of code just sitting there and symbols floating in the air looking dull, because I don't see the beauty of the green grass or the red rose or any color flower. It all is just the same code. So there's no distinction. And I'm like, it'd be kind of boring. I get it. So yeah, I'll accept that this is green, or this color is that the sky is blue. But that only works here. So when we go into the galactic stage and I go, that's a really nice green robe you're wearing, they're going to be like, well, what are you talking about? I'm not wearing a robe. And what makes you think it's green? They may view it as, this is, brown, or this is just my skin. I'm not wearing a robe. And so we have to put aside all the things that we blindly accept as truths to truly step into the galactic stage and learn what really is going on, because we have, a fraction of our potential being used, because that's what people tell us, that's all we can use. And we go, okay, and just accept it.
Mm.
And man, I'm going so deep, I need to take a break.
Ground yourself with some water.
Yeah.
So
I was going to ask you about, I've got your stuff written down here, you see. I was going to ask you, is it you've had 3 near-death experiences? Is that correct?
I have one that stands out more, and I'm going to preface by all 3 of my experiences have not been medically documented. I don't do medical doctors, so keep that in mind. But so I'm very hot natured. So when I start feeling cold inside, I know something is going on. And on this night, I had gotten home from work, and I worked for my parents at the time, and I start feeling like the blood in my veins is turning to ice. I am literally freezing. And I live in Texas. It's the summertime. Totally impossible to be freezing, but I am. And I go and I put long sleeve shirt on, put pants on, and I'm like, okay, this will make me warm. Nope, still cold. So I get a blanket and then another blanket and wrap myself in it. Still freezing inside. And I'm like, I can feel the sweat from the heat of the blanket. And I'm like, how am I sweating hot and freezing at the same time? Something is wrong. So I call my mom and I'm like, hey, I may not be able to come into work tomorrow. Something's off. I am feeling freezing cold and I can't warm up. And she goes, why don't you go lay down, go to sleep the night off, and when you wake up, let us know. And I go, okay. Well, I leave my living room and I go through the hallway and I get to the door to my room, and in the center against the back wall is this large queen 4-post real wood bed frame with mattress. And I'm like, okay, next thing I know, I am on the floor and I'm starting to feel warm again. And so I'm like, okay, whatever happened took care of the freezing. So whatever it was, it's done. Thank you. I'm glad to be warming up again. Everything's okay. And I'm like, my chin really hurts for some reason. And I'm like, I'm touching it and there's a sore spot on my chin. No idea how I got. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I need to get in the bathroom. I get to my feet, and thankfully the bathroom was like maybe 6 steps away. I get in there and purge my system. And I'm like, this has never happened. And I'm like, what in the world just happened? So I take the time to clean up because I'm like, yeah, I can't. I'm one of those people. I'm like, if I smell or see vomit, it's coming back up, whether I have anything or not. And so I'm like, I got to get this cleaned up fast because I do not want a repeat of this. Well, I get everything cleaned up and I look in the mirror and there's this bloody bruise spot on my chin. And I'm like, where did that come from? And I look over at the bedpost and I'm like, I was on the floor right by that bedpost. I bet my chin hit that bedpost. I think I passed out and lost it. I was like, and I literally was like, my body shut down. I feel like I was gone. There's like no blackout memory. It's like zero information. It's like I was there and then I was here. There's nothing in between. And I'm like, what could cause there to be nothing in between? I wasn't here. So that's why I call it a near-death experience, is because I was not existing after I hit my chin on the bedpost from the evidence I was left with to the new awareness I was in. And that's the other thing is I looked and all of a sudden I was like, well, my system just did like what science says, if you have an object that's dead, you bring it back to life, it purges the old tissue out so the new tissue can regenerate.
Oh.
I just did that. And so I was like, I must have been dead. Because it was like, it wasn't stomach juice that came up. I'll leave it at that picture.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and then all of a sudden I look and I'm like, well, I am feeling better than I have in a long time. I can now self-regulate my body temperature, so I can crank it up, lower it, and I didn't know I could do that before. And I was like, oh, well, now I can do this. And I start realizing in a moment, I'm starting to realize new thoughts and new awarenesses. And I'm like, oh, something triggered. Well, in the next two near-death experiences I had, not as dramatic as that one, I always had a new awareness at the end. And after the third one, I looked up and I go, okay, guys, I know we made this agreement, but we really need to come up with a new system of not shutting me down and killing me to start the new system. We really need to stop doing this. This is not working like I thought it would. And so that's the joke I tell myself is apparently when I was 2, I said, yeah, near-death experience, start the new stuff. I can do it. Not going to be an issue. Yeah, well, 2-year-old me not experiencing it was not prepared. And it was like, no, because I can do bodily harm to myself that's not going to be easily repaired. Like a chin, hitting the wood, that's easy to fix. Okay. What if I'm behind a car? Or what if I'm operating a machine or, cooking and the knife, I go out and the knife goes right across my arm and, I'm like, what, could be cut? I was like, no more near-death experiences to start the new awakening.
You see,
Love it.
I got caught in a fire, and I had no escape. And like you, it's really weird. And I just sat there, calm, with mayhem going on around me, flames. And I just, don't know, just thought, this is it. And then somehow somebody got me out. It was in a vehicle, got me out, got burnt. But I just like you, and I can't believe it. I can see it now. The whole thing went up, the cab, this lorry. And I just sat there calmly. I couldn't get out. And it's weird. I don't remember going anywhere. I remember being aware of everything, but it was the calmness. I thought, this is it. Strange feeling.
There is a calmness that takes over, when you realize,
yeah,
there's nothing I can do, so just be.
Out of your control.
Nothing I can do. Can't get out.
You remind me of an experience I had at a pagan Yule celebration. And I don't know that I shared this with you, Kathy, but I was in charge of the ritual with a friend, and this was our graduation kind of deal for our first year pagan class. And I went to the store and got this Yule log wrapped, in paper, special, that's supposed to be really pretty for celebration, and we, we're like, okay, so I stick it in my friend's fireplace, not even my fireplace, and I have the log on the top and the other logs that underneath it that'll take and light and use the flame from the log above. It'll flatten to ash and, start the other logs and keep them burning. Well, I set it in there and I turn and I take a few steps and I hear this sound and I turn and look back and the log went from up here to down here. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. And there's no tools around to grab the log because it's already on fire. And so I'm like, all right. Somehow I go into autopilot. I stick my hand into the fireplace, and this glow appears around my hand to where the fire disappears in that area. Grab the log, put it back on top, pull my hand out of the fireplace, and the flame returns to the full thing. And I'm like, and I sit there and I look, and I'm like, my hand does not look like it's been touched by fire. It's not burned at all. And I'm like, did I just really see what I think I saw? Did this really happen? And then I was like, I turned to tell someone. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to tell anybody because I don't want to go look. And then I stick my hand in and then I get burned. And everyone's like, yeah, you didn't do it. And I talked myself out of it. So I was like, I'm just going to leave it with that.
Strange.
I'll share a quick story in regards to fire. I was sitting at the ashram I do go to. I don't get there enough. I wish I could, but anyway, I'm sitting there, and I always sit in front. And there's an altar. There's an altar in front of me, and to the left and the right are beautiful carved reliefs of all the great prophets. There's Jesus, Muhammad. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful temple, and there's always candlelight. And so I'm sitting there and I always appreciate the space and I pray and I sit and I meditate and it's a peaceful, peaceful place. And I noticed that one of the candles was out and it was a candle on the other side of Jesus's relief. And I'm looking at that going, and it really bothered me. And I'm thinking to the point that I'm looking around going, okay, if I find one of those automatic lighter things, I'm going to go up and light that candle. Well, the whole time I'm sitting there, and there was no way somebody could have come in front of me without me seeing them, obviously. And I kept looking over at that candle, and it was really bugging me. And so I kept worrying about this candle not being lit, saying, how strange is that? They're usually always lit. So I'm sitting there, and I'm watching the woman who's addressing addressing us that day, and then I look over again, and the candle is lit. There's no way that candle was lit by a person because there was no person that went over and lit that candle. Now, I sat there in utter amazement and in total gratitude. I thought, oh my God, thank you for lighting that candle. And it just was like, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, that was, I think in some ways I kind of created it to happen, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it was remarkable. The candle lit itself.
Wow.
Well, I would say, reality, time is an illusion for us. So, you may have been witnessing a time when the candle was out. And then all of a sudden, because you were so focused on wanting it lit, you stepped into a time where it was lit. And so it's the term that a friend was telling me about on a show recently is it's called time slip, okay, where you slipped into a new time where it was lit. And so we don't realize how fast or how slow these time slips happen, because here's another fact for everyone. I don't get on my case about this, but time is not natural. time was created by man. We created clocks, we created daylight savings. Nature did not create a clock. And there were times where we had 13 months instead of 12 months. We had a time where the lunar calendar was what we used, and we had 12 months, 13 or 30 days, 360 days per year. That was our judgment. Then we switched to a new calendar system. We've had 3 or 4 calendar systems, depending on which culture you go by. And so time does not actually exist. So, in that aspect, you were in a time, where you saw it not lit, you saw it lit in mere seconds. And reality can change that. And it could be the reality of you focusing so much on wanting that lit, it lit.
That's what I was going to ask you. It almost to me felt like I manifested the lighting.
Yeah,
Is that possible?
it is. And
Yeah.
I'm
That's what I
curious your
thought
thoughts
about.
around that, Alex, of time and the candles situation.
Or maybe it's a miracle.
Mm.
You can look at it that way too.
Ah, very strange.
Yeah, and here's another fact for, how much I say that time is man-made is UK is 6 hours ahead of us, or ahead of me. I think it's 5
Right,
hours
5 for
where
me.
you
Yep.
are.
For Eastern, yeah.
But then you go to Indiana, Arizona, where time never changes. So how can that be if time is natural? And Japan, Australia, never time changes, I believe. I know Japan doesn't. I don't know if Australia does. But if time was natural, everybody would do it. And we use increments of hours. Newfoundland, Canada does hour and a half time change. So how did they get an extra half hour? And so that is where it's like I start noticing these little nuances, and I'm like, time cannot be a natural construct that has been around since the beginning. It had to be created because there's no congruency. There's no fluid, just is. It changes depending on where you're at. And that's just not natural to me. So that's where I'm like, nope, sorry. Time is an earth based system. And as long as I'm here, I'll operate in it. But that's as far as it goes. When I go astral, time
Yeah.
is non existent.
Right. 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 Now, Michael, have you yourself experienced time slips?
I
I know
have.
I have. Yeah. What happened for you?
One of them was I remember seeing, a movie and have memory of this movie that I used to be able to tell the title, what it was about, and everything. And I couldn't find anybody or any source of it on in the internet of this movie. And I'm like, and no, it's not the Shazam with, what's his name, Sinbad.
Yeah, yeah.
It, it was a different movie, but and there's also like to me time slips of I'll watch a movie for the first time and already know within 5 minutes what's going to happen in the middle and how it ends. And I'm like, I'd have no idea how, this movie would be in the middle and the end unless I've seen it already. Because as much as, certain movies like, given Hallmark, for example, they follow a script. This is going to happen towards the middle. About 15 minutes to the end, this is going to happen. That's going to create the nice Hallmark ending. So, yeah, those, I don't count those as time slip movies. I'm talking about like a science fiction movie that's brand new. Like, a hypothetical would be John Carter when it came out. Nobody had ever heard of John Carter, and that this book was 100 years old that they made this movie about. But if I knew, oh, he's going to end up on Mars, oh, he's going to meet this person, and this is going to change his life so when he meets her, everything, and be like mapping out what's going to be discovered, I couldn't know that without being on set, which I never was. And so that's where I talk about certain movies are like time slips, is because I have knowledge I can't have of this movie. And there's nothing similar, so it's not like I'm confusing it.
Interesting.
Never thought about that before. Yeah.
Yeah. Quickly, a time slip for me, actually, one happened when I was in Egypt at the base of the Sphinx between the two paws. I don't know if you remember seeing an altar there. And for me, what happens is when I go to some of these sacred sites, all of a sudden, I'm not in my body. I'm in another body. I'm looking out eyes that aren't mine, but yet I'm there. I'm in this body. And there was a religious ceremony taking place. We were all priests and priestesses, all dressed in white, and I'm carrying a baby. And we're approaching the altar there. And there's 4 holes drilled into that altar. I don't know if you recall that. And so in this lifetime, there were poles coming up. It was swathed with gold cloth, overlaying, above the altar. And there were priests behind the altar waiting for our procession. And our procession comes up. I'm very detached from this child. I know it's not mine. And I hand this child over, which was a male child, swaddled in gold and white cloth. And I hand the child to the priest who comes forward. And then it's gone. The vision's gone. And I'm back in my body. I'm standing there going, oh my gosh, now I know why those holes were in that altar piece. And I saw the whole thing. And what was interesting is that I did notice that the Sphinx was painted. And I didn't look up, so I don't know what the head was. But the stellar stone was not there between the paws.
Right.
So
And
would you consider that a time slip?
definitely. And Egypt is the magic of the land. The way that they keep it is prime for time slippage, because
Interesting.
as we were going temple to temple and walking the grounds and walking through the sand, I kept having, and I remember sharing this with you on, as we were talking in my shows, as you're walking along the sand and walking up to these temples or walking up to the pyramids, you had a sense of, this is where Pharaoh walked. This is where the people were walking. You were literally walking on the same sand they were walking on. You're walking through history in present time. And so you're able, you could look up and, like you're saying, we're looking at the ruins of a temple, but your mind could easily recreate the temple back to the way it was without a second thought, because it's like I'm literally here, caught up in the energy, caught up in the everything in this moment space. And it's, if you're actually living in the moment there, you literally can see the past, present, and future in the
Interesting.
same moment. And I will say, though, as much as, we're talking about having these mystical and unexplained experiences in Egypt, we did have that one afternoon of pure fun where we were in the carts and racing through town from the where we got off on shore to who was going to be at the temple
It was
first.
going to the Temple of Khnum, and it was in
Yeah.
Edna. Yeah. Oh, that was funny.
Yeah, we all were like, we hurried to our carts and we're like, all right, who's gonna get there first? You gotta get
Who
there
did get
first.
there first? I forget.
I know. It's like it
I
was the
think you
fun of the
did.
journey. It's like nobody. I don't remember who won, but it was like we were just having so much fun weaving through the city and being like, "You got to get us there. You got to get us there, sir. Please, please." And just
Well, do you
having the
remember
fun.
how all the children would come and congregate around us? And Claire had told us to bring pencils for the kids.
Yeah.
And we were literally, these poor kids were so poor that the biggest gift we could give them was a pencil. That always touched my heart. That, those children came out and we were giving out pencils to them. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they were treating us like royalty for having the
Yeah.
pencil. We're like, hey, here you go.
Yeah, it was something. But Michael, that Temple of Khnum in Edna, that was where, in fact, you actually came out and helped me with an experience I had there. Very much a darkness. I'll tell it very quickly. Shorten it up. I had to leave the Temple of Khnum because there was such a darkness there for me, and I ran out and I went to the farthest point away from the temple in the corner. How it was a dug-in thing, and I just said the Lord's Prayer over and over and over again. I was afraid for my life. The darkness that was there scared me to the point that Hatim came out. You ended up coming out with Carol and came over because Hatim realized I wasn't there, comes over to me and is comforting me. And I just said, I had to get out of there. There's a darkness here. And as he's saying, it's okay, you're processing some very bad karma, a black and white pigeon had flown over us and drops dead, falls from the sky, drops dead at our feet. And Hatim was so freaked out. Oh, this not good. Oh, this not good. And he takes me and we get out of there. Do you remember that? But
I
you came
do.
up, gave me the biggest hug, and Carol, and I'm standing there crying my guts out, thinking God knows what. But yeah, I mean, that was for me, a very evil place. Couldn't get out of there quick enough.
Well, guys, it's nearly 9 o'clock. It's gone quick, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah, lots of fun. Any other
let's
questions
do it
that you
again.
want to pull up? I hope you come back again. That would be fabulous.
Yeah, I would
Michael.
say you have to come back. Yeah, I was just looking at the time. I thought, blimey, nearly 9 o'clock.
Well, I can tell you that one about the Spielberg movie. I'm not up to date on movies. I'm sorry. So you'd have to give me a title or something more to work
about
with.
Disclosure. It's about disclosure, Michael. I forget the actual title. But I believe disclosure's in the title.
I saw something on TV last night. It might have been advertising something about Spielberg. Didn't take a lot of notice. Well, there you go. Should have done, shouldn't I? Could have answered the question. But Pearl says good show.
Everybody, this was a fun show. Michael, you were fabulous. Thank you. We touched a lot on a lot of different things today.
You'll have to come back again.
Show.
Yeah, I'll definitely be back. Just let me know when you have an opening and we'll make it happen.
Thank you. Yes, we'll be in touch for sure. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. We had our whole gang here. And Michael, how can people get in touch with you if they want to, get to know you better, follow up on something, or?
So the easiest way is to use my link tree, which I sent to, I think, either Alex or Kathy. And if I didn't, I apologize and I'll send it to you. But if on Facebook, you can find me under my name and you can find my shows by looking up the titles, The Energy That Surrounds Us, or Tetsu, and Riding Through the Unknown. It's on YouTube and Rumble. And I do have a website, and I'll tell a funny story about the website real quick. is I'm creating a website for the first time ever on GoDaddy, and I thought it was asking me what tag words or keywords would be used to find this website. So I go, Michael Kopf, paranormal investigator and podcaster. Next thing I know, my website's domain name is Michael Kopf, paranormal investigator and podcaster.com. And I'm like, wait, no, that's not what I wanted it to be. Let me change it. And they're like, it's going to cost you money to change. I'm like, nope, that's what it's going to be now. So that's how I got a really long domain name for my website.
They did that to me, one of them, long time ago. Yeah, I didn't ask for that. But there you go. What I was going to say was, Kathy, who we got next week? Of course.
Who do we have next
You won't
week?
be in. Kathy won't be in.
Right. It's my birthday.
Kathy's birthday next week.
And Michael, my
She's
birthday's
22.
on Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But anyway, we have
22
Eva
years
May.
old. Is that right? 22 or 23? And anyway, she's on the lash next week. So
yeah, so you have Eva May coming to join you.
And next week is Eva May Nico, which should be, well, we won't know what's happening.
Should be fun. And then on the 15th, we have Tom Reed. Are you familiar with Tom, Michael?
Reed, yeah.
I am. He runs a network that I air on and promote with.
He's on Rumble with his show. I've done his show as well. So yeah, he's coming on board then.
He's the week after.
We have Malcolm Robinson, and you know Steve Mera. Do you know Steve Mera?
I know of him, but I haven't had the pleasure to meet him yet.
Yeah. So yeah, we have a great lineup, and definitely would love to have you come back because after March we have March 15th open. Then the rest of the year is wide open. So
yeah,
let us know what can work for you.
I've got to start mentioning people.
In all fairness, Kathy, if you're doing a show on your birthday, I can do a show on my birthday.
Oh, what do you mean?
You said March 15th is open. Yeah.
Oh, is that your birthday?
That was the day we were in the Great Pyramid.
Oh my God, you're right. Yeah, that's funny. Do you want to come back on the 15th on your birthday or no?
Sure.
Oh, all right. Thank you. That
was
our
I say that. What day is that?
Yeah, it's a
it's a Sunday. That'll work.
Sunday. Yep. The 15th is a Sunday.
Yeah, because mine's the 12th.
We'll talk.
Mine's the 12th. Mine's the 12th. That's a Thursday, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You're the 12th. I've got you on my calendar. Yeah.
So anyway, next week we don't know what's going to happen with Eva and myself. God knows. Should be a laugh. Whatever happens.
Yeah.
It should be fun.
Yeah. And I will say I was looking at your promos, how they came out, and Rachel DeMarco.
Oh yeah, you know Rachel and Keith.
Last week, and I was like, man, I have to follow up Rachel.
Oh my gosh, no, they were fun. It was nice to meet Keith. I hadn't met him prior to. Rachel had come on our show, singularly. And so it was nice. And they've got their new business, their new paranormal group, the Liminal Shadow, is it? Paranormal?
Yeah. And I've known them for 2 names now. And so I always have to update my records when having her on going, oh, wait, no, not this one now. It's this one.
Yeah, I had to do the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, no, they're sweet people. And they were in the middle of that big ice storm and they didn't have power, but they were able to finagle their PC to some hotspot or something they had. So they were able to do the show. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. And thank you. And had a great time.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So I'll be in touch before the 15th.
Yes.
We'll have to celebrate.
I'm just going to put
big celebration.
Subscribe up.
Oh, you're freezing up, Alex.
Right.
Oh, geez.
He's putting the like and subscribe up on the screen.
Yeah.
Huh.
Everyone's gone off.
Yes, like and subscribe to this show.
Oh, all right. I'm back again.
Okay.
Well, I think this is the universe saying this is a good time to stop.
Yes.
Anyway, nice to
Yeah. Thank you again, Michael, for joining
meet you,
us on Lady and the
Michael.
Maverick.
And
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh,
And I'll just say real quick since we're still live. My books are available on Amazon. If you look up my name on Amazon, you'll find the 4 books that I have so far in the Awakening series, which is my story. And I have a 5th book I'm getting ready soon to publish that's called Deeper Insights into the Mind of Michael, which anyone who knows me knows that title is super funny because I will tell everybody I don't go into my mind because I'll get lost. So you get a
Good title.
journey to see why I say that.
Good title. Oh, thank you for that. Yes, important to mention your book series. Good luck with that.
we'll have a good one next week, Kathy. Have a nice birthday.
You. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll see you guys on the 15th. No, I'll see you on the 15th with Tom Reed. That'll be a fun show. Very interesting.
Tom Reed. Okay.
Story.
I'm sure
All
I've
right.
got it on my calendar.
You taking us out, Alex?
Yeah, just take you out.
Yeah,
somehow.
take us out. Bye,
Anyway,
Michael.
nice to see you
Hi,
guys.
everyone.
And
Good night, everyone.
see you next week.